Ph.D, Allen, Michael W., Design for How People Learn. Welcome to the summary of A Design for How People Learn by Michael W. Allen, Ph.D. This book delivers essential advice for educators and trainers, focusing on understanding students and teaching techniques that facilitate learning. By gaining insight into your students' existing knowledge, skills, and motivation, you can tailor your lesson plans to their specific needs. You'll discover crucial strategies for effective lesson design, such as creating action-oriented content, designing appropriate challenges, and fostering interactive learning methods. This summary is designed to make these complex topics accessible and engaging, assisting you in becoming a highly skilled educator.
Know your audience. Meet Sven, a graphic design expert who's eager to share his vast knowledge in a typography workshop. Unfortunately, Sven commits the critical mistake of not understanding his students' backgrounds, needs, and motivations before diving into teaching. To ensure your students truly benefit from your lessons, as an educator, it's essential to consider their skill levels and motivations, incorporate a two-way flow of communication and give students input regarding their learning experience. Picture this: Sven is a graphic design whiz at a prominent startup and has put together an exciting typography workshop for a group of new hires. All geared up to pass on his knowledge, Sven dives straight into the world of typefaces, fonts, serifs, and kerning, bypassing any formal staff introductions. The issue, however, is that Sven knows typography like the back of his hand, but he has no idea about his students' backgrounds or prior knowledge. Before getting into any teaching, Sven should have assessed the knowledge levels and skills of his students to tailor the workshop content accordingly. Educators should follow a few essential steps to determine their audience's backgrounds and needs. The first step is to identify whether your students have skill gaps, knowledge gaps, or both. In a hiking class, for example, experienced hikers have the skills but may lack necessary knowledge about routes and weather conditions. New hikers lack both knowledge and skills, so it's essential to teach them the basics before moving on to specific information. Understanding learners' motivation plays a critical role in their success. An ardent Francophile would be more enthusiastic about learning French than someone interested in the bassoon. However, understanding and connecting the course material with a student's unique interests can significantly improve their motivation. Say, by tying French lessons with the history of an 18th-century bassoonist, you can captivate the interest of a bassoon enthusiast. Remember to maintain an open line of communication with your students beyond initial introductions. Encourage a two-way flow of information that comprises asking them to explain concepts and demonstrate skills. This communication style helps identify each student's progress and allows for timely feedback and assistance. Lastly, empower your students by involving them in decisions about course pacing or structuring. Providing expert and beginner students with options to attend sessions catering to their knowledge levels gives them a sense of ownership. In conclusion, be like Sven but avoid his crucial mistake: dive into educating about your passion, but understand your students' backgrounds, skill levels, and motivations to create a more rewarding and productive learning environment for everyone. Mastering memory through chunking. Nikola Tesla's life can illustrate how our memory works in layers: sensory, short-term, and long-term. To help information penetrate these layers and reach long-term memory, try the practical technique called chunking. This method breaks down large chunks of information into smaller, digestible bits, making it easier to remember. When you recall Nikola Tesla's life, think about the various facts, like his year of birth, the city he was born in, his collaboration with Thomas Edison, and his famous inventions. While remembering these facts right after reading them might seem easy, retaining this information for a longer period relies on how well it passes through your memory's three layers: sensory, short-term, and long-term. Our brains are not designed to store every piece of information we come across. Instead, each memory layer functions as a filter, deciding which elements we keep and for how long. Sensory memory filters perceptions and sends relevant information to short-term memory. Short-term memory stores the gathered information temporarily, like remembering a Wi-Fi password just long enough to connect to the internet. Although our short-term memory can hold a lot of information, it doesn't do so indefinitely. To ensure that the information is transferred from short-term to long-term memory, the helpful technique of chunking comes into play. Have a go at this example. You can easily repeat the number 549, but the number 100,783,305,222 might be tougher. What if you break it down into smaller parts, like 100, 783, 305, 222? Suddenly, it becomes more manageable. This same principle applies to chunking in memory retention. Breaking down large pieces of information into smaller, more digestible portions will enhance their memorability, increasing the chances of them penetrating the long-term memory filter. However, it's important to note that breaking through this layer once might not be enough. To reinforce information in your long-term memory, find multiple ways to engage with it. Create effective learning shelves. To make new information stick in a learner's long-term memory, teachers should break it down into digestible chunks, leverage a student's existing shelves, and adapt the teaching context to mimic real-life situations. Emphasizing emotional context through role-plays can also enhance learning and retention. Think of long-term memory as a vast closet, filled with shelves overflowing with knowledge. Some shelves are neatly organized, while others hold miscellaneous tidbits. As an educator, your mission is to ensure that your teachings find their way onto the well-arranged shelves, preferably landing on multiple ones for easy accessibility. The key is understanding your students and capitalizing on their existing knowledge. Begin by working with the mental shelves your students already possess. For instance, English speakers learning Spanish have an advantage due to the shared roots and grammar of both languages. Your lessons should focus on drawing these connections to facilitate learning. In cases where familiar structures don't exist, like teaching Finnish to English speakers, build new shelves through the power of repetition. Beyond making connections, teachers need to encourage their learners to store information efficiently. Rather than cramming everything onto a single shelf, like in an intro to hip-hop course, repeat the same content in diverse contexts and with various associations. That way, Run DMC's career might reside on shelves labeled East Coast, Def Jam, and Adidas, among others. More organized shelves vastly improve learning retention. Context is crucial in accessing the appropriate shelves within our mental closets. A receptionist may recognize clients by name at the office but fail to do so when meeting them outside of work. To tackle this challenge, mimic real-world situations when teaching new skills, such as training court reporters to write shorthand within an actual court setting. Emotional context is equally vital for effective learning. The tranquility of a classroom might not match the high-stress situations where students will apply their newfound knowledge. Integrating role-plays that replicate demanding, real-life scenarios helps prepare learners for practical application. For example, trainee telesales employees can practice managing difficult customers through role-play scenarios. In summary, to ensure that your teachings enter the long-term memory of your students, follow these guidelines: break down information into manageable portions, work with students' existing mental shelves, and adapt both the emotional and environmental contexts of your lessons to better suit real-life conditions. 5 Key Lesson Design Strategies. Create captivating lessons by making them action-oriented, incorporating desirable difficulty, fostering interactivity, promoting good habits, and integrating knowledge into the environment. These strategies will elevate your instructional materials, engage your learners, and ensure effective results. Craving an effective and engaging learning experience. These 5 lesson design strategies will empower you to create impactful and memorable content that captivates your learners. Ready? Let's dive in. 1. Embrace action-oriented lessons. Go beyond theoretical knowledge and encourage your learners to apply new concepts through hands-on activities. This will positively impact information retention. For instance, during a nutrition course, have your students create meal plans that meet specific caloric intake requirements, rather than merely lecturing about daily caloric needs. 2. Balance with desirable difficulty. The ideal learning experience should be neither too easy nor too hard. According to psychologist Robert A. Bjork, working at the edge of one's ability fosters stronger connections with learning materials. Continuously challenge your students and adjust lesson difficulty in alignment with their growing competence. 3. Cultivate interactivity. Guide your learners in discovering new concepts, rather than spoon-feeding them information. For instance, in a workshop on job interview skills, use video recordings of successful and unsuccessful interviews to involve your learners in identifying best practices. This participatory approach will increase engagement and deepen their understanding. 4. Promote good habits. Consistent and effective performance often depends on the quality of our habits. Encourage your students to form productive habits related to the skills they're learning. To facilitate habit formation, help them identify triggers, such as performing version control after saving a file during computer coding. Tying new habits to existing triggers will foster automatic adoption of these positive habits. 5. Embed knowledge into the environment. Spare your learners from information overload by utilizing tangible environmental elements like signage, visual reminders, online resources, or workplace manuals to present critical concepts. Take the example of Boston's Red Sidewalk line connecting historical monuments for a self-guided tour. With such cues, your learners won't have to rely solely on memory and can instead focus on applying their knowledge more effectively. Employ these 5 lesson design principles to craft an engaging and successful learning experience for your students. And remember, to ensure the effectiveness of your lessons, it's crucial to test and evaluate your strategies periodically. Designing effective evaluations. Crafting an effective evaluation to assess learners' competence may seem daunting, but it doesn't have to be. Start by writing your evaluation at the beginning of the course, allowing you to teach the skills and concepts you plan to test. Incorporate feedback opportunities throughout the course, such as informal feedback, peer-to-peer feedback, and self-evaluation. Focus on testing recall rather than recognition to measure learners' actual knowledge. Lastly, gather feedback from students through anonymous post-course surveys for continuous improvement. Feel those butterflies in your stomach as you're about to sit for a big exam? Turns out, designing an evaluation for your students can feel just as nerve-wracking. Yet, creating an evaluation tool that accurately assesses learners' competence isn't as challenging as it seems. When constructing an effective evaluation, it's crucial to begin at the start of the course rather than the end. This ensures you're actually teaching the skills and concepts you'll be testing for later on. Rethink the idea that evaluations should only happen at the end of a course. Although a final test or evaluation is beneficial once the course is completed, it's also essential to provide feedback opportunities throughout the course's duration. In lieu of weekly formal exams, try offering informal feedback on tasks during or after a lesson. Prompt peer-to-peer feedback by having students correct each other's work and encourage self-evaluation by asking them to reflect on their performance and progress. When it comes to formal assessments, focus on testing for recall instead of recognition. Asking learners to recognize the most plausible answer among given options won't truly gauge their knowledge. Instead, prompt them to recall information they've learned throughout the course. For instance, instead of providing multiple-choice questions, ask students to write down specific strategies that address a particular situation based on their lessons. Finally, remember that gathering feedback is crucial not just for students but also for teachers. By offering a short, anonymous survey at the end of your course, students can share what worked well and what could use improvement. Embrace their feedback and be prepared to receive both positive and constructive criticism. After all, with the lesson design strategies mentioned here, you might end up receiving an overwhelming amount of praise from satisfied students. By implementing these practices, designing a valuable evaluation tool becomes less daunting and more rewarding, ensuring that both you and your students can appreciate the learning process.
In conclusion, design for how people learn Offers valuable insights on understanding your students and creating impactful teaching methods. Understanding your students' knowledge and motivations will enable you to tailor your courses more effectively. Ensure your courses are memorable by utilizing techniques like chunking and associating information to multiple contexts. By employing principles such as action-oriented designs, desirable difficulty, and interactivity, you'll maximize the effectiveness of your lesson plans. Incorporate regular evaluations, feedback, and assessments to identify areas that require improvement. Remember to always put your students at the center of your teaching strategies, creating a well-rounded learning experience that leaves a lasting impact.